Good morning. Today's Wednesday. Today I woke up. I said I'm going to be happy. I don't care what's going on around me. I'm going to embrace the notion of happiness today. And I would like everyone that's following me on social media to do the same. Forgive that person that hurt you the most. Let that pain go. Take the initiative on your business. If you have to change something like stop smoking or anything of that nature, do it. Today's the day.
Developing this noon, 2 people found dead in a South Florida townhouse complex. Good afternoon. Deputies say someone opened fire.
Let's get right to 7's Brandon Byer in North Lauderdale with what we know so far. Brandon?
Lorena, Ethan, this is a sad one out here in North Lauderdale. Broward Sheriff's Office says that they found 2 people shot to death when they got out here at about 9 o'clock this morning. That's when the first call came, and as you can see from these pictures here on the ground, just a massive investigation at this point. I want to show you some pictures from above. Skyforce hovering above shortly after all this broke, again just after 9 o'clock or so this morning. Again, Sheriff's Office saying that 2 people found dead outside a townhome here. There's a car.
What makes a man murder not only his ex-wife, but his own teenage daughter in broad daylight? On April 14, 2022, Jennifer Bellony was on the phone with her mother when something outside her North Lauderdale townhouse caught her attention. "I'll call you back," she said abruptly, her voice suddenly tense. She never made that call. Minutes later, Jennifer and her 15-year-old daughter Anastasia lay dying in their driveway, gunned down as they prepared for the morning school run. Her 2 young sons, already buckled in the car, witnessed everything. Welcome to Shadows of Crime. I'm your host, and if you're new here, hit that subscribe button and notification bell right now. Today's case will shake you to your core. At 32, Jennifer had built a successful financial services business for nothing. She was a devoted mother who worked tirelessly to provide for her family. After years of financially supporting her unemployed ex-husband, she finally drew a line. That decision would cost her everything. Was this a crime of passion or a calculated act of revenge? How does financial control become a deadly weapon in the hands of an abuser? And why did the system fail to protect a woman who had previously sought help? As Jennifer opened her front door that morning, she had no idea she was walking into an ambush. No idea that her refusal to continue funding her ex-husband's lifestyle would end with her daughter trying desperately to shield her from bullets. Drop a comment below telling me where you're watching from and if you've ever witnessed the dangerous escalation of financial control in a relationship. Your engagement helps this channel reach more people with these crucial stories. Now let's step back and understand who Jennifer Bellony really was, before her name became linked to this tragedy forever. Jennifer Bellony was the kind of person who lit up a room. At 32 years old, she had already accomplished what many spend a lifetime pursuing: financial independence, a thriving business, and a loving family. Born and raised in Margate, Florida, Jennifer grew up with strong family ties. Her relationship with her Aunt Bellan was particularly special. Despite being aunt and niece, they were the same age and considered themselves more like sisters. Bellan would later describe Jennifer as someone who always found a reason to laugh, even during the most challenging times. Jennifer was the person you could call at 3 a.m. if you needed help, Bellan told local reporters after the tragedy. She would drop everything for family and friends. That's just who she was. Professionally, Jennifer was a force to be reckoned with. She founded Bellany Financial Solution, offering tax preparation and credit repair services. Her business acumen didn't stop there. She invested in real estate, purchasing land and homes as part of her growing portfolio. On social media, she documented her journey as a businesswoman, inspiring others with her success story. Jennifer's Instagram page for her business showcased a confident professional woman who took pride in helping others achieve financial stability. The irony that her own financial decisions would ultimately lead to her death wasn't lost on those who knew her story. As a mother of 3, Anastasia, nicknamed Nana, and 2 younger sons, Jennifer prioritized creating a stable home environment. Friends described how she would work late into the night after putting her children to bed, determined to build a legacy for them. She wanted her kids to have everything she didn't have growing up, a close friend recalled. She was working toward buying a bigger house, setting up college funds, making sure they would never struggle. Jennifer's dedication extended beyond her immediate family. She was active in her community, always willing to lend a helping hand or offer financial advice to those in need. Her generosity was legendary among those who knew her. What made Jennifer's success even more remarkable was that she achieved it largely on her own. While raising 3 children and building a business, she also carried another burden: supporting her increasingly dependent husband, Andre Anglin. Jennifer and Andre's story began like many others. High school sweethearts who thought they'd found their forever. They met at Margate High School, where friends described them as inseparable. Andre was charming, attentive, and seemed to adore Jennifer. In the beginning, they were that couple everyone envied, a former classmate remembered. Always together, always laughing, you thought they were perfect. They married young and started building their family. First came Anastasia, followed by their 2 sons. From the outside, they appeared to be living the American dream, young, in love, with beautiful children, and their whole lives ahead of them. But beneath the surface, troubling patterns were emerging. While Jennifer pursued education and career advancement, Andre struggled to maintain steady employment. Job after job would end abruptly, always with an excuse, always with the promise that the next opportunity would be different. As Jennifer's business grew more successful, the financial dynamic in their relationship shifted dramatically. She became the primary and often only breadwinner. Andre's contributions to the household dwindled until they became non-existent. She was essentially raising 4 children, Bellan explained. Her 3 kids and Andre. He became completely dependent on her financially, emotionally, everything. This dependency created a power imbalance that would eventually turn toxic. When Jennifer would express frustration about carrying the financial burden alone, arguments would escalate. Friends noticed how Andre would become defensive, then manipulative, using guilt to maintain his access to Jennifer's resources. Financial abuse is often overlooked as a form of domestic violence, yet it's one of the most common tactics used by abusers to maintain control. By making Jennifer responsible for all expenses while contributing nothing himself, Andre created a situation where she felt obligated to continue supporting him, even as resentment built. The pattern became clear. Jennifer would work tirelessly to build financial security, Andre would benefit from her success without contributing, and any attempt to establish boundaries would be met with emotional manipulation or threats. They would tell her that if she really loved him, she would help him, a family member revealed. He'd promised to look for work, to do better, but those promises never materialized into action. As years passed, Jennifer began to recognize the unhealthy dynamics in their relationship. She attempted to encourage Andre to find employment, offering to help with his resume or drive him to interviews. These efforts were met with resistance, excuses, and occasionally flashes of anger that hinted at a more dangerous side to Andre's personality. By 2018, the relationship had deteriorated significantly. Arguments became more frequent and intense. Andre's behavior grew increasingly controlling, monitoring Jennifer's movements, questioning her about money, and making demands about how she should spend her earnings. It was during this period that Jennifer began to consider separation. The thought of breaking free from the financial drain and emotional manipulation became increasingly appealing, but as she would soon discover, Andre had no intention of letting her go. The first documented incident of violence between Jennifer and Andre occurred in 2018, 4 years before the murders. During a heated argument, Andre's rage escalated to the point where Jennifer feared for her safety. His threats were specific enough, his demeanor threatening enough, that she took the significant step of filing for a restraining order. He said if I ever left him, he'd make sure I regretted it, Jennifer wrote in her petition. He said he'd rather see me dead than with someone else. The court granted a temporary restraining order, but when the hearing date arrived for making it permanent, Jennifer didn't appear. According to her aunt Bellan, Jennifer believed Andre's promises to change. She told me he was getting help, that he was sorry, Bellan later testified. Jennifer always saw the good in people, even when they showed her their worst. This decision to let the restraining order lapse created a dangerous precedent. It signaled to Andre that his behavior had boundaries that could be pushed, tested, and ultimately crossed without consequence. After the restraining order incident, the couple attempted reconciliation, but the relationship continued to deteriorate. By early 2020, they were living separately, and their divorce was finalized later that year. Despite the legal dissolution of their marriage, Jennifer continued to provide financial support to Andre. She felt responsible for him, her sister Monique explained. He never held a steady job during their marriage, and even after the divorce, she would help him with rent, with food. She couldn't stand the thought of him struggling. This financial dependency created a power dynamic that Andre increasingly resented. As Jennifer's tax preparation business flourished, his own professional prospects remained stagnant. Friends reported that Andre would often make disparaging comments about Jennifer's success, suggesting she thought she was too good for him now. By 2021, Andre's behavior had become increasingly erratic. Family members recall receiving disturbing late-night calls. Jennifer confided in close friends that Andre had begun showing up unannounced at her home and workplace. He would demand money, claiming it was for their children, though Jennifer had primary custody and was providing for their needs. Would text her dozens of times a day, her coworker Tasha revealed. Sometimes loving, sometimes threatening. It was exhausting for her. In early 2022, Jennifer made a decision that would prove fatal. She cut off financial support to Andre completely. She changed her phone number and instructed family members not to share her new contact information with him. "I'm done enabling him," she told her mother. "I need to focus on my kids and my business." What Jennifer couldn't have known was how this assertion of independence would trigger Andre's most dangerous instincts. The financial control he had maintained through manipulation and threats was slipping away. 3 weeks before the murders, Andre told a mutual friend, "If Jennifer thinks she can just throw me away like trash, she's got another thing coming. She'll see what happens when you disrespect a man like that." The friend didn't report this comment to authorities. The restraining order was long expired. Jennifer's new security system hadn't yet been installed. All the pieces were falling into place for a tragedy that, in hindsight, sent warning signals that flashed bright red, but somehow, no one connected the dots until it was too late. What exactly happened on that fateful April morning when Andre decided that if he couldn't control Jennifer, no one would have her? April 14th, 2022 began like any other Thursday for Jennifer Bellony. Her alarm chimed at 6:15 a.m., giving her time to prepare breakfast for her 3 children before the morning school rush. Tax season was in full swing, and after dropping the kids off, she planned to head straight to her office where clients were scheduled back-to-back. Anastasia, 15, emerged from her bedroom already dressed in her high school uniform, her backpack slung over one shoulder. At 7:32 a.m., Jennifer's phone rang. It was her mother calling for their daily morning check-in. "We're just heading out," Jennifer said, ushering the boys toward the door. "Anastasia has track practice and I need to—" She stopped mid-sentence. Through the front window, she spotted a familiar figure standing near her car in the driveway. "Mom, I'll call you back," Jennifer said, her voice suddenly tense. "Everything okay?" her mother asked. It's Andre. He's outside. I need to go." Those were the last words Jennifer's mother would ever hear her daughter speak. Jennifer turned to Anastasia. "Get the boys in the car. I'll deal with your father." Security camera footage from a neighbor's house captured what happened next. Jennifer stepped outside, closing the door behind her. Andre approached, gesturing animatedly. Though there was no audio, body language experts who later reviewed the footage noted Jennifer's defensive posture. Arms crossed, maintaining distance, head shaking repeatedly. Anastasia emerged with the boys, guiding them toward the car. She helped her brothers into the back seat, buckling Elijah's seatbelt while Marcus fastened his own. The argument between Jennifer and Andre intensified. He stepped closer, she backed away. He reached into his waistband and pulled out a 9mm handgun. Anastasia, seeing the weapon, rushed toward her mother. Witnesses would later report hearing her scream, "No, Dad, stop!" Andre fired 3 shots at Jennifer. As she collapsed, Anastasia threw herself between her father and mother. Without hesitation, Andre fired twice more, striking his daughter in the chest and neck. The entire confrontation lasted less than 2 minutes. Inside the car, Marcus unbuckled his seatbelt and covered his younger brother's eyes. "Don't look, Elijah," he whispered, pulling his brother's head against his chest. "Don't look." Neighbors, alerted by the gunshots, called 911. First responders arrived within 7 minutes, but it was already too late. Jennifer was pronounced dead at the scene. Paramedics detected a faint pulse in Anastasia and rushed her to Broward Health Medical Center, where she died during emergency surgery. The boys remained in the car, huddled together in the back seat, until a female officer gently coaxed them out. Body cam footage shows Marcus, still protecting his brother, asking a question that would haunt first responders for months afterward. "Is my mom just sleeping? Can you wake her up?" The lead investigator later described the scene as one of the most heartbreaking I've encountered in 20 years on the force. The children's backpacks and lunchboxes were scattered across the driveway. Jennifer's phone, still connected to her mother, who had heard the gunshots and was frantically calling her daughter's name, lay shattered on the concrete. As police established a perimeter and began interviewing witnesses, a critical question emerged. Where was Andre Anglin? Initial reports suggested he had fled on foot, triggering a county-wide manhunt. SWAT teams were deployed to locations associated with Andre, including his apartment and his mother's home. Schools in the area went into lockdown. Helicopter footage showed officers with rifles searching nearby wooded areas. As detectives processed the scene at the park, they uncovered evidence that would completely change the trajectory of the investigation. What they found raised a chilling question. Was Andre Anglin acting alone that morning, or was someone else pulling the strings in this tragedy? Within minutes of the first 911 call, Broward County Sheriff's deputies flooded the North Lauderdale neighborhood. First responders secured Marcus and Elijah in a patrol car, while paramedics worked frantically on Jennifer and Anastasia. The boys, still in shock, clutched each other as neighbors gathered behind the yellow crime scene tape that now surrounded their home. The Broward Sheriff's Office immediately issued an alert for Andre Anglin, describing him as armed and extremely dangerous. A command center was established nearby as the manhunt intensified across North Lauderdale and surrounding communities. As news of the double homicide spread, Jennifer's tax preparation office became an impromptu memorial site. Clients and friends left flowers, candles, and teddy bears outside the locked doors. Many expressed shock that the vibrant businesswoman they had consulted with just days before was now gone. At Anastasia's high school, the announcement of her death sent shockwaves through the student body. The 15-year-old had been a promising student with dreams of her own future, now violently cut short while trying to protect her mother. Meanwhile, investigators tracked Andre's movements after the shooting. Security cameras captured him fleeing the scene, and his cell phone activity provided crucial information about his path. When contacted by detectives, Andre's family members expressed disbelief, though they acknowledged his increasingly unstable behavior in recent months. Bank records showed Andre made a withdrawal shortly after the murders, emptying his account. His vehicle was later discovered abandoned, suggesting he was attempting to evade capture by changing his mode of transportation. By early afternoon, Andre's photo was circulating on every news channel and social media platform in South Florida. The community was on high alert, with many parents keeping their children home from after-school activities as the manhunt continued. The breakthrough came when Andre was spotted at a gas station, attempting to purchase supplies and a bus ticket. Law enforcement quickly surrounded the location, evacuating customers and establishing a perimeter. Inside, unaware he'd been recognized, Andre continued his desperate attempt to flee the consequences of his actions. As tactical teams took position, a tense standoff began. After the morning's violence, authorities were determined to bring Andre into custody without further bloodshed, but the question remained, after taking 2 lives that morning, would he surrender peacefully? The standoff at the Circle K gas station lasted just under an hour. Customers and employees had been safely evacuated, while Andre, unaware he'd been recognized, continued shopping for supplies.
This morning, the search is over for the suspected killer of a woman and her teenage daughter. Broward deputies say they found him dead inside of a gas station. NBC6's Julia Baggs, she joins us here with more details on what happened and the family's reaction this morning. Julia.
Wisconsin's Broward deputies tell us 34-year-old Andre Anglin took his own life inside of a Fort Lauderdale Circle K. Deputies had tracked him to that Sunrise Boulevard convenience store after days of searching for him. Investigators say they'd been looking for Anglin in places he was known to frequent. They tell us Anglin was in the bathroom when police tried to speak with him.
When deputies attempted to make initial contact with Anglin, they heard a gunshot.
Deputies had been searching for Anglin since April 13th for the shooting deaths of a woman and a teen near their home in North Lauderdale. Relatives say the victims were Jennifer Bellony and her teenage daughter. They say Anglin was Bellony's ex-husband and the father of her 3 children. One of Bellony's relatives told us now the family can be at peace and begin planning funeral services for their loved ones. Live in the studio, Julia Bagg, NBC 6 News.
Jennifer's 2 young sons were placed in the care of her mother, who now faced the unimaginable task of raising 2 traumatized children while grieving her daughter and granddaughter.
You're a coward, and God will deal with you. My God will deal with you. He took my baby's life away. He took my best friend, my niece. How could you put us in so much pain? She took care of him for years. This would never work.
And records show Bellony asked for a domestic violence restraining order against Anglin back in 2018. With this manhunt for Anglin ongoing.
According to family members, the younger son had stopped speaking entirely, while the older one had taken on a protective role beyond his years. He tries to be so strong, Jennifer's mother shared. At night, I find him checking the locks, making sure the doors are secure. No 7-year-old should have to carry that burden. Jennifer's tax preparation business, which she had built from nothing, was taken over by a colleague who pledged to donate a portion of the profits to the boys' education fund. Clients continued to bring flowers to the office, many sharing stories of how Jennifer had helped them navigate financial difficulties with compassion and expertise. At Anastasia's high school, students created a memorial scholarship in her name for future graduates interested in pursuing medical careers. The path she had hoped to follow herself. The double funeral, held 10 days after the murders, drew hundreds of mourners. Mother and daughter were buried side by side, their caskets covered in white roses and purple orchids, Jennifer's favorite flowers. The murders of Jennifer and Anastasia Bellony represent more than just an isolated tragedy. They expose critical gaps in how domestic violence cases are handled within the legal system. Jennifer's case followed a pattern that domestic violence experts have identified as dangerously common: initial protection followed by systemic abandonment. When Jennifer first sought a restraining order against Andre in 2018, the court granted a temporary order. However, the burden then fell on Jennifer to pursue making it permanent, a process requiring multiple court appearances, legal knowledge, and the emotional fortitude to face her abuser in court. When she didn't appear for the hearing to make the order permanent, the case was simply dismissed. Temporary restraining orders without follow-up are like putting a Band-Aid on a bullet wound, explains Dr. Rachel Thompson, who studies domestic violence patterns at the University of Miami. They create a false sense of security while doing nothing to address the underlying danger. No one from the court system reached out to Jennifer to determine why she missed her hearing. No one assessed whether she had been threatened or coerced into dropping the matter. The system, designed to process cases rather than protect victims, simply moved on. The period after separation represents the most dangerous time for victims of domestic abuse. When Jennifer divorced Andre in 2020, no formal risk assessment was conducted, despite their history of documented conflict. The financial control Andre maintained, even after the divorce, is a recognized warning sign for potential violence, yet it went unaddressed by any official intervention. Financial abuse is present in 99% of domestic violence cases, notes Thompson. When a victim finally cuts those financial ties, as Jennifer did, the risk of lethal violence increases dramatically. It's often the final trigger. Andre's suicidal threats represented another critical warning sign. Family members recall praying with him over the phone during these episodes, but without professional mental health intervention, these crises only escalated. The connection between suicidal ideation and homicidal intent, particularly in domestic abusers, is well established in research but remains under-recognized in practice. Jennifer's aunt Bellan still struggles with the what-ifs. Jennifer's brother echoes this sentiment. The system gave her a piece of paper that was supposed to protect her, then left her on her own. What good is a restraining order to someone who's dead? Perhaps most troubling is how Andre's threats were normalized over time. When he told a mutual friend weeks before the murder that Jennifer would see what happens when you disrespect a man like that, it wasn't reported. Such threats had become so commonplace that they no longer registered as the serious danger signals they were. There's a desensitization that happens, explains Thompson. Victims and their support networks begin to see threats as just words, especially when previous threats haven't been carried out. But research shows that specific threats, particularly those made after a victim asserts independence, should be taken extremely seriously. The tragedy of Jennifer and Anastasia Bellony highlights the need for systemic reform, better risk assessment protocols, proactive follow-up on temporary restraining orders, and recognition of financial control as a form of abuse requiring intervention. Their deaths were not just the result of one man's actions, but of a system that failed to connect the dots until it was too late. Jennifer and Anastasia Bellony's lives were cut short in an act of violence that was both shocking and tragically predictable. Their story serves as a stark reminder that domestic violence doesn't always announce itself with bruises and broken bones. Sometimes it hides behind financial control, emotional manipulation, and threats that too often go unreported. When Jennifer finally took the brave step to completely sever financial ties with her ex-husband, to stop funding the lifestyle of a man who had shown increasing instability, she unknowingly crossed the threshold that many abusers cannot tolerate: the loss of control. The most dangerous time for any victim of domestic abuse is when they assert their independence. Jennifer's decision to prioritize her children and her business over Andre's demands was her right, a right that cost her and her daughter their lives. If you're watching this and recognize similar patterns in your own relationship or in the relationship of someone you care about, please know that resources exist. The National Domestic Violence Hotline operates 24/7 at 1-800-799-7233. They can connect you with local resources, safety planning, and legal advocacy. Remember that financial abuse is real abuse, and threats should always be taken seriously, even if they've never been acted upon before. For those supporting someone in an abusive situation, listen without judgment, believe them, and help them access professional resources. Sometimes the most dangerous thing you can say to someone in Jennifer's position is, "He would never actually do that." If this story has impacted you, please consider sharing it. Hit that subscribe button and notification bell to support our mission of bringing awareness to these critical issues. Your engagement helps these stories reach those who might need to hear them most. Jennifer Bellony built a business from nothing. She raised 3 children with love and dedication. She dreamed of a future free from control and fear. Anastasia was just beginning to discover who she might become. A young woman who, in her final moments, tried to protect her mother. We honor their memory not just through grief, but through action, by recognizing the warning signs, by supporting those at risk, and by working toward a world where financial independence doesn't become a death sentence. Jennifer and Anastasia deserve to live. Let their story be a catalyst for the change that might save someone else.